From censored files to clear evidence, this is Redacted Realms.
The sterile smell of antiseptic and ozone hung in the air, thick enough to taste. His chest was still, not a single tremor of life. The monitor's green line was a flat, unwavering horizon of finality. Then, a sound cut through the quiet. Not a beep, but a wet, sticky tear. It was the sound of the surgical drape being peeled back from his skin, a sound that felt wrong, too intimate for this room of death. And beneath that drape, where his heart should have been still, the skin pulsed, a single, impossible beat, against a silence that had already pronounced its verdict. The man was dead, but something inside him was very much awake. No breath, no brain activity. Yet the surgeons maintained this state deliberately. For 7 days, they held him in that silent, empty limbo. The air grew thick with the sterile scent of antiseptic and the faint metallic whisper of the machines. They kept him there, suspended between worlds, for a purpose no one in that room dared to speak aloud. This is the story of the coldest man on earth, a glint of surgical steel, the metallic scent of the operating room. Frost webbed across his skin as the doctor's gaze locked on the empty cavity. His heart was gone. His blood was replaced with freezing salt water, and what they brought back was both a miracle and a nightmare. In the sunny streets of a small Michigan town, home video footage shows a man in his 30s laughing and playing with 2 children in a backyard. This was Mike, full of life and warmth before the cold procedure changed everything. Mike Anderson, a carpenter from Grand Rapids, a father, a husband, the kind of man who repaired his neighbor's fence without being asked. He built his life quietly, solidly, like the furniture he crafted. A life of predictable sawdust mornings and peaceful family evenings. It was a good life, until the day the familiar grain of the wood began to whisper. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday, Mike's own heart turned traitor. In his quiet kitchen, the steady rhythm faltered, stuttered into silence. The world narrowed to a crushing pressure, a sudden, profound stillness within. It was a massive, sudden cardiac arrest, a widowmaker strike. Paramedics battled for a rhythm, but Mike's heart was nothing but shredded muscle. By the time they reached Mercy General, his grip on life was a single, fraying thread. The metallic scent of blood and ozone hung thick in the ambulance bay. His only chance? A gamble more terrifying than the silence that now followed the fading sirens. The patient needed a transplant, but hearts don't grow on trees. Dr. Sarah Vance, a brilliant but relentlessly pragmatic surgeon, assessed the dying man. His wife Emma stood nearby, her hands trembling with unspoken terror. Dr. Vance looked between them, the clinical gaze offering only an impossible choice. In the sterile hospital room, Emma sat wide-eyed and exhausted, listening intently. The scent of antiseptic and ozone hung thick in the air. Dr. Vance leaned forward, his expression grave and intense. A heavy, palpable dread settled between them as he prepared to speak. Vance's voice was low, a solemn hush in the sterile room. "Emma, there's a potential donor heart," he said, the words hanging in the antiseptic air. "But it's in Oregon. Getting it here. Preparing Mike," he continued, the weight of logistics pressing down. "It'll take at least 5 days." The air grew heavy with ozone, and the faint metallic scent of hope deferred. He met her gaze, unflinching. In his current state, Vance finished, the finality sticking to the silence. "He has 5 hours." Then she spoke words that felt plucked from a fever dream. Dr. Vance's voice dropped to a hush, thick with clinical gravity. "We can induce a state of suspended animation, emergency preservation, and resuscitation." The title itself carried the metallic scent of a new kind of death. "We will drain his blood and lower his body temperature until all cellular activity nearly ceases. He won't be alive, but he won't be dead either. He'll be held in perfect stasis, a suspended state that will only end when the heart arrives." The operating theater descended into a frenzy of controlled chaos. Monitors flipped erratically, but one tone dominated, a flat, haunting drone that seemed to thicken the sterile air. That sound became the backdrop as they opened Mike's chest, medical precision giving way to something more primal. In that sterile room, clinical procedure transformed into visceral horror, history written not in charts but in flesh. They linked his circulatory system to a complex machine, a cold metallic parasite that began draining the life from him. Gallon by gallon, his warm 98.6-degree blood was siphoned away through transparent tubing. In its place, they pumped a freezing saline solution that spread through his veins like liquid frost. The sterile smell of ozone and antiseptic filled the room as his warmth was methodically replaced with artificial cold. Frost crystallized across Mike's exposed heart, branching like frozen ferns through his tissue. His skin took on a deathly, ashen pallor as his core temperature plummeted. The monitors tracked his descent. 90 degrees, 70, 50. They had taken him lower than any human had ever been deliberately cooled. 50 degrees Fahrenheit, just 10 degrees above freezing. Mike Anderson had become a scientific artifact, a statue of flesh and ice. The air itself felt brittle, carrying the faint, metallic scent of deep cold. No heartbeat, no brainwaves, just profound, terrifying cold. The frigid stillness seeped from the room into the dim hospital corridor beyond.
The air carried a faint, clinical scent of ozone and decay.
A heavy dread settled in the emptiness, thick and suffocating.
Emma pressed her palm against the ICU window's frigid glass, watching Mike's frost-rimmed, motionless body.
The weight was a particular torment. Her husband lay in a room, not a coffin, yet he was absent. Where was he? The antiseptic air grew thick, heavy with the scent of ozone and decay that didn't belong. The doctors insisted the frigid state was safeguarding his brain and organs. Yet for 5 excruciating days, Mike Anderson drifted in a chilling medical limbo. He became the coldest patient on Earth, a man encased in a clinical freezer. There he waited, suspended between life and death, for a heart that might never come. Day 5. A heavy cooler rattles down the sterile hall, its contents a final, desperate hope. The new heart, a cold, slick weight, is carefully transferred. The rewarming process begins. The air in the OR grows thick with the scent of ozone and sterile alcohol, a metallic tang on the tongue. A low hum fills the space as machines coax life from stillness, a fragile beat against the oppressive quiet. The machine reversed with a low hydraulic groan, pumping the icy slush out and replacing it with warm, donor blood. The transplant itself was a surgical masterpiece, the new heart sewn meticulously into place. But the true moment of truth arrived afterward. As Mike's body warmed cell by cell, the team watched the monitors, the air thick with the metallic scent of blood and the sterile sting of antiseptic. Would there be a spark or just silence? The surgical team stood frozen, eyes locked on the flatlined cardiac monitor. The sterile air grew thick with the metallic scent of ozone from the charged paddles. Time seemed to stretch, each second a weight pressing down on the room. Vance's hands hovered, suspended in anticipation. A flicker, then another. A jagged, breathtaking line etched itself across the display, followed by the sharp, rhythmic beep. Beep, beep. It was a heartbeat. After 168 hours of absolute quiet, a new heart began to beat within the thawing chest. They had done it. The impossible had been achieved. They had pulled him back from the far side of death. Mike Anderson was alive. On the 7th day in the recovery room, Mike's eyelids fluttered weakly open. Emma's sobs hitched in her throat as her fingers tightened around his clammy hand. The sterile air carried the faint, metallic scent of antiseptic and something else. Something stale and forgotten. He managed a thin, ghost of a smile that didn't quite reach his sunken eyes. But this is where the bizarre human story begins. Because something came back with Mike. He was grateful, of course. He hugged his children, the warmth of their small bodies a stark contrast to the cold, damp sensation clinging to his own skin. Yet the air in the room grew thick, carrying a faint, coppery scent that hadn't been there before. A primal unease took hold, a silent alarm that the simple joy of homecoming was now haunted by an unseen passenger. He offered his gratitude to Dr. Vance, but something within him had fundamentally shifted. The deep cold had infiltrated spaces beyond medical charts or diagnostic tools. A metallic scent, like old iron, clung to the air around him. His own breathing sounded shallow and alien, as if listening to someone else's lungs struggle. Mike stood motionless before the window, the brilliant sunlight outside failing to penetrate the deep chill that clung to his bones. He shivered involuntarily and pulled a thick sweater close, the fabric a futile barrier against an internal winter. His hand recoiled from a glass of water, the touch of the condensation feeling not just cool but unnaturally, painfully frigid. This was a cold that lived within him, a deep and constant ache that the world's warmth could not reach. Scalding water seared his flesh, yet failed to thaw the icy void within his bones. It was a deeper, more profound emptiness, a hollow cavity where warmth and sensation should reside. He felt a profound internal silence, a stillness so absolute it seemed to swallow all sound. This was not mere cold, but a consuming absence that left him numb and hollow. "It's like part of me stayed in that quiet, cold place," he told Emma, his voice hollow. "The part that used to get excited about things, the warmth." Mike sat motionless, the joyous noise around him feeling muffled and far away, as if heard through thick glass. The official psychological reports were inconclusive, citing PTSD, but failing to name the profound, chilling vacancy that had taken root inside him. Something essential had been left behind in the silence, replaced by a permanent, internal winter. But Mike insisted it was something else entirely. He was haunted by visions of vast, frozen oceans, stretching into an eternal blackness. A profound disconnect grew within him, separating him from the warm chaos of living. Though he survived the impossible, he felt a deep, unsettling longing for the silent peace of the void he'd left behind. 1 year after his surgery, Mike sits for an interview in a sparse, sterile room. His voice is quiet, deliberate, each word measured like a careful confession. "People call me a miracle," he says, the air in the room feeling thin, almost clinical. "And I am." A soft, almost inaudible sigh escapes him. "I get to see my kids grow up. I know how fortunate I am. But do you understand what the most profound human sensation truly is? It's warmth. The warmth of the sun, a sensation you cling to when the air grows heavy with the scent of ozone and the creeping cold of damp stone. The memory of a hug, even of anger, feels distant now. I watch life unfold through this glacial barrier. I can perceive the warmth of it all, the vibrant hum of existence just beyond the frost, but I cannot feel it. That sensation is gone. Dr. Vance sat in her office, her expression shadowed by unease. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung in the air, but it couldn't mask the underlying tension. She finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Medically, he's perfect. The transplant is a success. Medically, his vitals were perfect. We saved a life on paper, but whether we preserve the essence of him, that remains beyond science's reach. Now Mike walks alone on a deserted beach, a heavy blanket clutched tight against his skin despite the summer heat. The salt air carries the scent of ozone and decay, a silent testament to what was lost in the sterile light of the operating room. He stops, gazing at Lake Michigan's frigid, slate-gray waves. So what is the price of cheating death? Mike Anderson's heart now beats a flawless rhythm, but he carries a frozen secret. For one entire week, he required no heart at all. He existed in absolute, unnatural stillness. A fragment of Mike's consciousness remained anchored in the cold, deep, unwilling to return to the surface world. The camera pulls back, leaving him a solitary figure against that immense, frigid expanse. The sound of crashing waves begins to warp, blending with the slow, mechanical beep. Beep, beep of a hospital monitor. Voiceover. The real question isn't if we can retrieve someone from the void, but what we might drag back with them.
If this file opened your eyes, subscribe and open the next case.